Hello, and welcome to TC Pod Network. I'm Anthony Wilson, recording from Los Angeles, California. Today, I dive into a high-profile case reigniting national debate. The Menendez brothers, Lyle and Eric, denied parole in California despite new hopes for freedom. I'll unpack the parole board's reasoning, the family's emotional plea, and what's next for the brothers convicted of their parents' 1989 murders. Plus, I'll explore California Governor Gavin Newsom's provocative trolling of President Donald Trump on X, a bold political strategy blending humor and hardball tactics in the fight for redistricting power. Later on, I'll attempt to restart a once-heated discussion that seemingly extinguished when he won Super Bowl MVP in February. That's right, I think Jalen Hurts is still overrated. Let's get to it. This week, Lyle and Eric Menendez, convicted in 1996 for the 1989 murders of their parents, Jose and Kitty Menendez, were denied parole by the California Parole Board in separate hearings held in San Diego. The brothers, who were 21 and 18 at the time of the killings, claimed they acted in self-defense after years of alleged sexual and physical abuse by their father. Despite a resentencing in May 2025, they reduced their life sentence without parole to 50 years to life, making them eligible for parole under youth offender laws. The parole board found both brothers posed an unreasonable risk to public safety. Commissioner Robert Barton, in denying Eric Menendez's parole on Thursday, cited his prison conduct, including recent cell phone violations, drug use, and involvement in a tax fraud scheme, stating, "Contrary to your supporters' beliefs, you have not been a model prisoner." Similarly, on Friday, Commissioner Julie Garland denied Lyle Menendez's parole, acknowledging his remorse and positive contributions in prison, and pointing to ongoing antisocial personality traits like deception and rule-breaking, particularly his use of contraband cell phones as recently as March 2025. The hearings, which spanned nearly 10 and 11 hours respectively, were marked by controversy when an audio recording of Eric's testimony was unexpectedly released, prompting outrage from the brothers' legal team and family. More than a dozen relatives, including their aunt Teresita Baralt, who was battling stage 4 cancer, spoke in support of their release, emphasizing their rehabilitation and remorse. However, Los Angeles County District Attorney Nathan Hotchman opposed parole, arguing the brothers have not fully accepted responsibility for the murders, clinging to a false narrative of self-defense. The brothers' family expressed disappointment but remained hopeful, stating, "We are incredibly proud of how Eric and Lyle showed up, with honesty, accountability, and integrity. The Menendez brothers can seek parole again in 3 years, with a possible administrative review in as little as 18 months if they maintain clean prison records. Meanwhile, they pursue a habeas petition for a new trial based on new evidence of alleged abuse and a clemency request pending with Governor Gavin Newsom, who has the final say on any parole decision." The case, reignited by recent Netflix series and public support, continues to spark debate over rehabilitation versus justice. For now, Lyle and Eric Menendez remain behind bars, their fight for freedom far from over. I want to thank Grok for summarizing the details of the parole denial. I use CNN as their source. I want to thank Grok also for this synopsis of the evidence that supported premeditation in the murders of Jose and Kitty Menendez. So the brothers brought shotguns days before the murders using a friend's ID, which suggested planning. After the killings, the brothers deposed of evidence, like their clothes and the guns, fabricated an alibi, claiming they were at a movie. They went on lavish spending sprees, purchasing cars, a Rolex, and a restaurant, which prosecutors argued showed consciousness of guilt and a motive that tied to their parents' $14 million estate. Eric confessed to his therapist, Dr. Jerome Ozio, about the murders, and Lyle later threatened Ozio to keep quiet, suggesting awareness of their guilt. And the evidence against premeditation was that the brothers testified they acted out of fear due to years of alleged physical, emotional, and sexual abuse by their father, Jose, with Kitty enabling or participating in emotional abuse. They claim the killings occurred after a confrontation where they believed their parents would kill them to silence the abuse allegations. The defense argued the brothers' actions were impulsive, driven by panic and trauma rather than a calculated plan, supported by testimony about their dysfunctional family dynamics and psychological evaluations indicating long-term trauma. The defense noted no definitive evidence showed a long-term plan, and the brothers' fear of their parents' control and abuse could explain the purchase of guns as a protective measure rather than for murder. Okay, so in the first trial, juries deadlocked, with some jurors believing the abuse allegations mitigated premeditation, leading to a hung jury. The first trial was in 1993. The second trial took place between 1995 and 1996. It says the prosecution emphasized premeditation, and the judge limited abuse-related testimony, weakening the self-defense claim. The brothers were convicted of first-degree murder, implying the jury found premeditation. Key evidence of premeditation included a screenplay Eric wrote before the murders about his son killing his parents for inheritance, which prosecutors used to argue intent. Though the defense claimed it was a creative outlet for his trauma. So, and of course, they were convicted in that second trial. So, for me, and I watched a little bit of that the Netflix movie. That starred Javier Bardem as Jose Menendez, and it just showed the part where Eric is talking to his therapist and confesses to the murders, and the funeral scene. And, of course, at the beginning, it paints Lyle as more of the more aggressive and the more sadistic or evil of the brothers, and Eric, the younger brother, as more regretful. Basically, more like Lyle was the psychopath and the sociopath and the hardened. I couldn't say hardened killer because I think those were. They're not known to have committed any other murders, or suspected of committing any other murders, either one of them. But I think it. That was how it, presented the two brothers. And only to find out that basically it was actually Eric's idea to begin with. And that's pretty much all. I've seen the actual scene where they showcase the murders. Obviously, one of the most gruesome things I've ever seen depicted in media, basically, for dramatic purposes. And I just feel like, basically, these guys were 18 and 21 years old at the time of the murders. So I don't buy if that's what they're suggesting, that it was still taking place, the abuse, and they got the guns for. I mean, I understand having guns for self-defense, but it's like they're 18 and 21, not 8 and 11. Right, not 8 and 12. So, I don't know. I mean, if what seems more likely is that, if there was years of abuse and they just finally decided that, they were going to get their vengeance for what had happened to them. Well, I mean, it's unfortunate, but that's still premeditated murder. And then the way they acted after the killings, as I said, spending their parents' money and stuff like that, it didn't look, it didn't look good. It doesn't look good now. So I don't know. I just think if you, it's it's like I understand if you, I mean, if you were abused and your dad was an ass, and your mom was uh, basically, I mean, she didn't do anything to stop it. Yes, she could. In situations like that, when you have a dominant and abusive man, the mother is usually, there's nothing, I mean, the mother is basically useless in that situation, right? So, and I think Eric said in the in the Netflix series that was their way of like putting her out of her misery. I don't know if he said that in real life, but I just think that, I mean, that sounds like a basic, like a that's that doesn't sound. I don't buy that. It's like a cop out almost or something. Uh, so did they kill their parents because they wanted to inherit their money, or did they kill their parents because they it was years of abuse, and finally they decided that they were gonna. I mean, you've heard stories like this, I think, of people who, stuff that was done to them when they were younger, and then they get older and they go and they, take vengeance to people who violated them. But either way, it's premeditated. I mean, it will be premeditated murder. They planned it out. They bought the guns, and then they executed the murders when they did. Um, so, I mean, it's like I understand anybody who has sympathy towards these guys for what they may have experienced, but I don't know. I think what would be, I mean, it's a tough call, man. At this point, they both, they've been in prison for over 30 years, right? So at some point, do you call it even and go, okay, they don't done all this time behind bars, or do you? I mean, personally, what does it seem like? I'm the type of person who thinks that when you're on a jury, that, I mean, if the defense's, I'm sorry, the prosecution's job to prove the case. And so I think with the Menendez brothers, not only does it seem, I mean, in most cases, just like if you just look at these guys and look, they seem like pretty. They don't seem like victims in that sense. He seemed like a couple guys who maybe some bad stuff happened to them, but they had some creep to them also, and they did what they did. And I think sometimes that'll get you convicted of love. People are just like, well, what does it seem like? It seems like these guys are guilty. So it's tough, but I don't know. Maybe they'll get out one day. Should they be out? I can't say. You know. We now shift to a different kind of battle playing out in the digital sphere. California Governor Gavin Newsom is taking on President Donald Trump with a provocative social media campaign on X. Newsom's posts, styled in Trump's own all-caps brash tone, have gone viral, with one calling Trump Donald Taco Trump, Trump always chickens out, and another mocking his Truth Social typo, Bella, as a low-IQ autobiography titled Beta. These posts, from Newsom's Governor Press Office account, have amassed over 1 billion impressions since August 1st, 2025, boosting the account's followers by 250,000. The trolling doubles as a strategic push for a November 2025 California ballot measure dubbed Liberation Day to allow mid-decade redistricting. Newsom aims to counter Trump-backed redistricting in Texas that could add up to 5 GOP House seats, potentially tipping the balance of power. He's framed it as a direct challenge, posting, "California's beautiful new maps will end the Trump presidency." Dems take back the House. While Democrats like MSNBC's Chris Hayes call it entertaining and a rallying cry, critics, including Fox News' Dana Perino and California Senator Brian Jones, blast Newsom for stooping to juvenile tactics and undermining Democratic norms. Trump fired back on Truth Social, labeling Newsom new scum and dismissing the campaign as sad. Newsom, undeterred, told reporters he's mirroring Trump's childishness to expose his absurdity while galvanizing voters. This high-stakes social media gambit has sparked fierce debate over political discourse in the digital age. As the 2026 midterms loom, Newsom's unconventional playbook is reshaping the battle lines. So, Gavin Newsom, all right, and once again, thank you to Grok AI for that summary of the Newsom trolling of Trump. But so Gavin Newsom is someone who is they can say whatever they want about this ballot measure, and they turn Gavin Newsom is gearing up for a presidential run in 2028. Okay, that's what this man is doing, and he's making waves. Obviously, Newsom is 57 years old. He's in the prime of his life, of his political career, and he's looking to become the first. Ronald Reagan was the governor of California, and he went on to win the presidency. Richard Nixon was the governor of California, and he went on to win the presidency. And Gavin Newsom is looking to join that line of men who led the state of California and then went on to lead the nation. But Gavin Newsom, who's been the governor for I think it's been since 2019. He's wouldn't say he's done a good job. You look at California, it's not just a homelessness problem; it's a homelessness epidemic. 180,000 people who were homeless statewide. I've talked about it before. About I go downtown. One day I was downtown at LA Live. Right, LA Live that's where the Staples Center is, across the street. Now they call it Crypto, but we still call it the Staples Center in LA. And so it's across the street from LA Live. So this is where the players that have a hotel that has a Marriott and a Ritz-Carlton. It's basically the same building. One side is the Marriott, the other side is the Ritz-Carlton. And this is where the NBA players will come and stay at the hotel. Road players, sometimes Laker players have stayed at the hotel. Just easier to get to the arena. All you have to do is walk across the street. This is where they'll have the BET Awards here, NBA All-Star Game. A lot of stuff goes on, and you have celebrities coming in and out all the time, superstars. And I remember one day I was over there, and right across, it was where they have eatery restaurants over there where you can eat, and I'm looking down at the ground, and it was clear that there was, I believe, it was human feces on the ground that someone had stepped in and then tracked all down the sidewalk. And this is a place. This is downtown Los Angeles, where major events. They have the Grammys at Crypto, at Staples Center. It's really preposterous when you think about it. That's like, I wonder if you go to Manhattan or you go to a place where big events happen in New York City where they have the Met Gala. I'm not sure where they have the Met Gala, where they have it at. If you see that same problem, and it just shows a lack of it. I know New York City's a screwed up place, but California's screwed up in that sense, man. It's the biggest problem that we have in this city or in this state. And also the second biggest problem is California being so soft on crime. Any theft below $950 is a misdemeanor, and normally they just won't even bother to prosecute it. So I would say that Gavin Newsom, basically a classic, I would say an Obama-like uh, liberal. Um, if he became prime, he's a guy who has the look, uh, of a president. But I don't know his leadership skills. If what he's done in California is any indication, I don't know. It doesn't look good for America if he runs and let's say he wins in 2028. Well, with the rest of this country, look like it'd be like a liberal cesspool. Homelessness would rise all across the country. Crime would rise all across the country. Law enforcement would be weakened. It would just be I don't know. The immigration thing was a huge problem too in this city. We got more. if The immigration problem is worse here than anywhere else because of all the illegals who came here from uh, you know Latin America, and you know like I said, I've always got along with these guys. They're not a problem for me personally, but the state is overpopulated because of that. And so California, we failed on that, and if it was up to them, I thought it was a big deal a couple months ago when ICE was out here, cracking heads. I don't know if it was like a month ago, not even 2 months ago. So that was a big deal, and you know, I just think that if you don't want the rest of I don't think you have to worry about it. Nobody on the freaking, he's not pulling anybody. I don't. Obviously, he's not pulling anybody from the right over to his side, over to the left. You know, so can he put the people in the middle? Would they prefer uh, Gavin Newsom to the gentleman in Florida, or maybe a JD Vance, the JD Vance ran in 2028? I don't know about that, but I don't know. It'll be interesting if he shows some backbone. Maybe like he's been showing, trolling Trump. You're basically taking Trump's own tactics. That was the thing that got a lot of people to, turn pro-Trump. It's the way Trump, delivered and stuff like that. But I don't know. I just don't know if he has like I said, this is a very California is the most liberal state in the country, and Gavin Newsom has been in charge since 2019. So I don't know. He's from the Kamala Harris, that he's from that tribe, and I don't know. Like I said, the guy has the look, almost like a real smooth, like a Mitt Romney type of cat, but I don't know. We'll just have to see what happens. All right, so finally, this is not really a news story. It's just something that basically just popped into my head, which is, so I was on X or Twitter, and I saw the NFL. They tweeted that it said it's basically the post was saying that Jalen Hurts, Super Bowl MVP, and is about to enter his sixth season in the league. And I don't know why, but it just triggered me because Jalen Hurts, right? So before he won it was like a 2 or 3 year debate where everybody was like, Jalen Hurts, how good is Jalen Hurts really? Is Jalen Hurts an elite quarterback? You know, and it went right up until the Super Bowl when they drubbed the Chiefs and Hurts won Super Bowl MVP. And ever since then, I haven't heard anybody say that Jalen Hurts was overrated, right? Which everybody was saying before the Chiefs won. Before the Eagles beat the Chiefs. But Jalen Hurts, right? And it's funny because this Cowboys documentary just came out on Netflix, and I would say that out of all the quarterbacks and now Jalen Hurts only has one Super Bowl, right? But he's been to two. It barely lost to the Chiefs the other time. But the quarterback that I would say that he most reminds me of, in a sense, is Troy Aikman, right? Meaning Troy Aikman was somebody who, numbers-wise, his numbers never blew you away. But he won 3 Super Bowls. He won a Super Bowl MVP. And, of course, he was on the best team of the 90s, the most talented team of the 90s, the Cowboys. He had Emmitt Smith. He had Michael Irvin. He had Jay Novacek. He had Moose Johnston. He had one of the best offensive lines in the history of football. Their defense had Charles Haley and Deion Sanders in '95. It had Ken Norton Jr. It was just it was a hell of a team, right? And they won 3 Super Bowls in 4 years, and Aikman became really famous, and now he does TV. But there are people who would tell you that Troy Aikman was overrated. Was he overrated or not? I don't know. I think I used to think he was. I would say now he's probably just properly rated. Maybe in the 90s he was overrated, because he wasn't as good as as Elway. He wasn't as good as Brett Favre. He wasn't as good as Dan Marino. He wasn't as good as Steve Young. But he was a good quarterback on a special team with special talent around him, and he did what he needed to do. And pretty much that's what Jalen Hurts is today. And you give him credit because, like I said, he's basically one drive away. I think they were tied. They lost the Super Bowl to the Chiefs by 3 points. It was a field goal at the end, right, when they lost in 2022. But he was this close to being a 2-time Super Bowl champion, and he has one. Now, the difference between 2022 team and this year's team, of course, or last year's team, I should say, is that last year's team had Saquon Barkley, who had rushed for 2,000 yards and then sat out the last game, foregoing the record. And they still won the Super Bowl. They won the Super Bowl. And he gets, Barkley in the Super Bowl numbers-wise didn't do much, but really he was the MVP of the game because the threat of him breaking loose and running wild on the Eagles, the Eagles were so afraid that they basically just, Jalen Hurts was just out there just playing pitch and catch with his receivers, right? And of course, the Eagles' defense also dominated the Chiefs. But yeah, I think Jalen Hurts is like I said, he's a good quarterback. I think for sure Troy Aikman was a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts is, But the type of media attention Jalen Hurts gets, I would say, is not commensurate with his talent, right? He's a good quarterback, but he's not on the same level. We can say for sure there's 4 quarterbacks who are better than Jalen Hurts. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, reigning MVP, Lamar Jackson, a 2-time MVP, Mahomes also a 2-time MVP, and Joe Burrow, who's just, I think they missed the playoffs the last couple years, but 2021 he made the Super Bowl. 2022 almost made the Super Bowl again. Obviously put up unbelievable numbers last year. So there's no question those are the top 4 quarterbacks in the NFL. And then, so there's look. There's On this, I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 quarterbacks. Outside of those four, well, you could argue that at their best, I'd say 12 quarterbacks because Tua can't stay healthy, right? But we're talking here Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield, Jared Goff, Dak Prescott, and I would put Justin Herbert there too. Last year the Chargers ran the ball more. But all of those quarterbacks at their best, I understand Jalen Hurts, he picks up yards on the ground. The touchdowns are inflated because it's mostly push touchdowns. It's not like the Lamar Jackson or the Cam Newton, those guys who are like really like scrambling and making plays. Not like I said, 700 yards rushing for a quarterback, that's really really good. But the touchdown wise, he's mainly getting those touchdowns on the tush push. He's not like a Josh Allen in that sense, or a Cam Newton back in the day, or somebody like that, right? But those guys that I just named, all of them, I would say for sure, Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield, Jared Goff, and Dak Prescott. I don't care what anybody says about Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott is a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts. And you know this because you have to ask yourself, if you put Jalen Hurts on their teams and ask him to do what they do, could he do it? And of course not. Jalen Hurts is the weak link of the Eagles because he's not a great passer. He's okay, but Jalen Hurts is not someone that you've said, okay. I mean, basically, the Eagles kind of spoon feed Jalen Hurts. If you go, okay, Jalen Hurts, we're going to put you out there, and now you're the system now, and you have to make it happen. Could Jalen Hurts do that? How would that go? Nobody can even imagine that, right? Then you have Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford is he's old now, and his health is starting to fail him. But of course, Matt Stafford at his best, better than Jalen Hurts at his best. Brock Purdy at his best, better than Jalen Hurts at his best. And then the young guns, Stroud, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix. These are all guys who can be the system. I know Jaden Daniels last year with Kingsbury, like I said, they spoon fed him. That's part of it. It's good. You're lucky if you're a rookie quarterback and that can happen. But does anybody think that Jalen Hurts is a more talented quarterback than Jaden Daniels, and that Jaden Daniels, if he continues on his trajectory, won't be better than Jalen Hurts? And then, like I said, Tua can't stay healthy, but like somebody like Kyler Murray is more talented than Jalen Hurts. And it's not to bash Jalen Hurts, but I think what Dominique Foxworth said at that time was true, that Jalen Hurts is pause, but Jalen Hurts has pretty privilege. Pause again. If Jalen Hurts looked like Geno Smith, would Jalen Hurts get the media attention that he does? The answer is no. He would. Even Geno Smith, that 1 year with the Seahawks, his best year, could Jalen Hurts do that? The answer is, of course not. And Geno Smith, not saying that he's I don't judge guys on looks. I'm just saying a lot of women like Jalen Hurts. Geno Smith, he looked like it's anybody you would go to school with. So a little black guy, ashy. And if you put him on the Eagles and he does the exact same thing, nobody. It's like, okay, great, you won the Super Bowl. You were the Super Bowl MVP. He wouldn't be getting as much attention as Jalen Hurts does. It is what it is. So, the other thing is Jalen Hurts, because he's still a good quarterback, but there are just many quarterbacks who are better, and he's just in a situation that is I wouldn't even say it makes him look better because, it's not like it doesn't really make him look better. He's on the most talented team in the league, and people still are, until he won the MVP of the Super Bowl, it's just like, okay, how good is this guy really? So you can't even really say that they're propping him up. Everybody sees his weaknesses, even though he's playing on the best team in the league. So, sorry, Jalen Hurts. I don't know what to tell you, but I don't know, man. I had to bring it back up, bro. Hopefully, when people hear this, it won't reignite the debate about whether or not you are overrated. For your sake, but for my sake, hopefully it does. All right, so before I get out of here, just a reminder to hit that subscribe button next to the Complete Podcast Network and to follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at TC Pod Network. You can also send feedback and mailbag questions to CompleteLakersPodcast at gmail.com. I am out.